Joining us now, she's in year 7 coming up here on Missouri. Time flies. We've known her. We've had her on since back in the days when she was at Hofstra, coming off an incredible year, 48 wins, super regional appearance, and just another awesome year, another NCAA tournament appearance. That's what they've been doing since she's arrived at Missouri. I speak of our good friend Larissa Anderson, who is a suffering Giants fan, like I am a suffering Dolphin fan. So our condolences are to our respective teams there. We've
I
had a
know,
tough
I
year.
know. I shed a little tear, and you and I can just mourn in our sorrows over NFL teams.
Yeah, we'll trade that towards the end. But let's talk about the positives. And before we talk about this year, last year, such an amazing season. 48 wins, like I mentioned, a win away from the World Series, hosting winning a regional, super regional. When you have now time to reflect on last year, what comes to mind? Because you've been celebrating, and I'm glad to see that. Like I've seen highlights, clips of you been celebrating, honored at football games and things like that. What have you been? What when you look back, what comes to your mind?
Just the entire experience. Like, yes, the wins are awesome. Definitely, when you want to make a great postseason run, but the experience that I shared with these players, it was one of the most unbelievable moments of my coaching career. Like, they gave everything they had. They left it on the field, and if you could just sum up what our postseason run and coming out of the losers bracket after losing that opening game in regionals and having to win, two huge double headers against unbelievable competition. I mean, that in itself is just the grittiness and the fight that this team had all year long. And you know what? You want to win that last game like everybody, but I'm just so unbelievably proud of the effort that they put in and that they left their legacy. I mean, they left the year up on the outfield wall, like we say every team, but they did it with such class and pride and dignity and fight.
Is that the wildest postseason in your career? Well, you mentioned it. You played. You draw. First of all, you draw a brutal 4 seed in Omaha. I remember that when that bracket came out. I'm like, oh boy, because that was a 3 seed that got. Let's be honest, a 4 seed because of travel arrangements, whatever. So you got to play them and their great pitcher. You drop to the losers bracket. You have to beat Washington. You got to get all the way back to the regional fight. You play a dramatic game just to get to win that regional against the great Omaha team. Then you play a great Duke team that goes back and forth, goes to extra innings. I mean, that's one of the most dramatic regionals. If you would have told me that was multiple teams that went through that, I could believe that. You went through all of that. I mean, that's insane.
I mean, probably the toughest postseason that we've ever had. I mean, and you can start off with the SEC tournament and going to the championship game there. I mean, probably the three toughest weeks we've ever had and I've ever had in my coaching career for sure. But just so unbelievably proud that they never faltered. And like after we lost that game one against Omaha, and they were unbelievable. Like such a tough pitcher for us to face and team. And then to have one of our alumni in the visiting dugout, I mean, just adds another emotional level with them or Robbie on their coaching staff at Omaha. But just that fight that we had and the determination to be able to get to Sunday, like that was the whole goal. Win a doubleheader on Saturday. Let's get to Sunday and then just win that first game, and then anything can happen from there on out. And I'm just so proud that they had that fight within them. I mean, they refused to lose, and they refused to lose on their home field.
And the atmosphere was incredible, at least on TV at the stadium. What was it like to be in that atmosphere in that regional, leading you on to that comeback, and then the following week in the super regionals?
It was the most energetic, unbelievable crowd. I mean, that the regional was hot. Like it was mid 90s. It was brutal. It was something that I've never experienced before, and that the will that they just had. But the super regional atmosphere and our administration, I just got to give them a lot of credit and a shout out because they let the gates stay open. Like we did not put a cap on our attendance. They said, leave the gates open. People want to come in. We're going to find a spot for them. And setting attendance records every single day through that postseason. And then hearing the MIZ chant go back and forth between the grandstand and then the berm back and forth. I mean, just everybody was invested in that moment. And I know it's something that they're going to remember the rest of their lives.
Is that atmosphere what you imagined and dreamed when you got to Missouri? 'Cause, I remember when you left Hofstra, that was one of the reasons was to, hey, you're going to the SEC, but to build this program back up to what it was. It wasn't where it is now when you took over it. Did you envision it when you got there to Missouri?
It's a dream. Like it was always something like this is what we can build here. This is what we can do. Looking at the way the stadium was designed, you can see what it could become. And then when you see it in real life, I mean, it far exceeded what my imagination was able to create. But then again, it's like now that I saw it, let's go continue to go one step further. Let's get some permanent grandstand seating in the outfield. Let's see how big we can actually make this because the excitement's here. Like people want to watch us play. It's such an unbelievable venue. And when you get so many people on board in understanding how they add to the success of what's happening on the field, they really truly feel a part of it.
What'd you learn about yourself? I mean, even going to that SEC tournament, that was a big SEC tournament because the deep run probably locked up a top 8 seed for you. Who knows if you get knocked out early, if you get left out or not? That's how deep the teams were as far as the top 8 seed consideration was concerned. Get to the SEC final. You're going against Cameron Meyer in Omaha. The Darlings there. You got Monica Abbott in the booth. And then it's like all this hoopla, and yet you're able to find a way. What did you learn about yourself going through really a lot of adversity, intense times there as a leader of young women?
It's not about those games. It's about all the preparation. And I think that's the um I would say the most rewarding. Like when you look back in year one in 2018 and 19, like what you're establishing that foundation then led up to our success now. And when you buy into that vision and the preparation and you believe in what you're doing, and then you get the players to start believing what you're doing, and when you have this success, then they feel it the whole way through. So what I'm able to coach them in the fall, like even this fall, the stuff that we're saying, this is what we need to do in order to be successful. They know it's been successful in the past. They buy into that whole process. So when you get the reward at the end, it's kind of like it was all worth it. It was worth doing all the training. It was worth watching all the film. And then when it goes down to postseason, like you don't feel any pressure because the hay's in the barn. I never said that in New York. I never even understood what that meant that the hay was in the barn. But now being in the Midwest, I get it. Um, but the hay's in the barn, and when you get to the postseason and you prepared all year long for those moments, now it's like, hey, let's just go play. Let's play our game. We're gonna have a great time doing it. We're gonna do it in front of a lot of people on a big stage. Let's just enjoy being with each other one more day. And when they feel that energy and that emotion and they start playing for one another, it takes the pressure off of what's at stake. And that's really the big message and what I learned about myself that I can't get too high and low. I can't make that regional championship game any bigger than it was, in early February. It's just another game. It just might be in front of a little bit more people.
How have the returners been in the fall? On the one hand, so much accomplished that year, a lot of success. I'm sure a lot of pat in the backs. As I mentioned, I think your teams was honored before a football game, which is amazing. Yet there's probably another side of them. They're like, man, we were this close to Oklahoma City, which I know is the ultimate goal. So what has that been balancing act been like in the fall for the returners in particular?
Extremely driven. Like they want to get back to that point. And us as coaches, we got to remind them, like, you don't want to get to that point. You want to get beyond that point. And you got to do more than what you did last year to even have a shot to get even that close because it's not an automatic. So it's constantly reminding them to not look in the rearview mirror. Like you can appreciate the opportunities you had and the success that you had, but you can't say, well, last year we did this because it doesn't matter anymore. It's not going to carry over to the next game. So it's almost wiping a clean slate, learning from those experiences, but then gaining on what does this team need to do? Because this team that we have is going to be completely different than last year's team. And we got to be more disciplined. We got to be more structured. We got to have each other hold each other more accountable to be able to reach even close to where we did last year.
You lost some good leadership. I had to look twice at your site. No Jenna Laird. That feels weird.
I
Uh,
know.
I just needed a double look. 'Cause I was like, am I right on this? Of course, you lose Gallagher, Alex Honnold. I mean, among others, some great leadership there. First of all, the legacy those players left. Talk about that because I think that would not be it'd be unfair not to mention the what they've contributed to your program.
I agree, and I'm glad you bring it up because Lauren Krings, Jenna Laird, Alex Honnold came in, was recruited by our coaching staff, stayed here all 4 years, and the commitment, the loyalty. You have 4-year starters, and the legacies that they left. Some of them rewrote the record book, but I think what the legacy that they're going to be passing on to everybody else is their hard work, their dedication, their work ethic, their commitment to the program and having the program give back to them. Alex Honnold came to a fall game this year, and we announced it over the PA during our game, and she got a standing ovation. And that's the recognition that the name recognition that she has and being an All-American and what she's done for this program and the respect that she's earned from everybody else in the stands. And it's those stories that are going to be continue to be passed down. Um, they led by example. They did everything right. They were fierce competitors. You look to them for guidance, and it's trying to replace some of those characteristics that are hard to find in some people. And it's just making sure that we respect them by working just as hard as they did.
Is Lauren getting into coaching?
Lauren is on the staff at Minnesota.
I saw that. That's
She is. She's the director of player development up there.
is that something that she brought up to you? Was that during her career? Did it just kind of happen? Was that always the plan for her? Like, I'm always fascinated by that because you've helped a lot of players get into different coaching, and you've inherited a lot of people that come to you as well. So
Yeah,
how does that
part
work?
of yeah, and it goes back to how we teach here. Like we teach the game, we teach the game within the game, and all of our players know how to teach the game and pass it on. And that's part of like again, here I'm in the Midwest, and I say you got to replant the crop. Like you got to continue to grow the game, so that way we all have an opportunity, and it's replanted. So then we have those young players growing up. So every player that graduates from our program knows how to teach it. So if they want to utilize softball to their advantage to continue their career or go on to be a grad assistant and get their master's by benefiting from their skill set, they have the opportunity to do so. Lauren Krings has always said she wanted to coach, and she went through her undergraduate degree to be a personal trainer and specialize in nutrition and strength and conditioning. So she understands programming. But when Minnesota reached out and said, "Do you have any pitchers that are graduating?" I'm like, "I got a pretty good one." So she went up and interviewed and got the job. So I'm excited for her to be able to pass it on to their players.
That's great. Spread the wealth there. You got 10 new faces this year on the roster, seven freshmen, part of a heralded class, and three transfers. Just talk about the newcomers and what they bring and kind of implementing them into your program.
I'm going to start with like Madison Updegrove, local kid from Columbia. She had broken the home run record. It's since been broken this past year by another senior in high school, but she broke the Missouri home run record here in the state. And her parents have been season ticket holders since she was probably in seventh or eighth grade. So she's watched the program from the stands for the last 5 or 6 years. And it's neat listening to her when she's on the field in a fall game to look up and do the MIZ chant with the crowd at the end of a game. She's like, I used to be on the other side and I did the ZOU and now I'm doing the MIZ. And it's like, this is now your program. So you have to take ownership of it. And the pride that they have in watching the success and now the responsibility that they have upholding it, it's a pretty tough task, and it's giving them permission to be able to treat it as though it's their program. They're no longer fans anymore. Um, they're extremely athletic, and I think that's the most exciting thing. And all those freshmen, they're unbelievably athletic. They're scrappy. And sometimes those scrappy players, like it's that cat and dog that are like just clawing at you all the time, and they're never going to quit and never going to die. And that's what I really see out of this freshman class.
Is this the best? I mean, to compare this freshman class, because I know it's very heralded, and it's. I remember when you first got to Missouri. I think it was your opening presser or something like that. Media would ask you about, hey, about recruiting in the region. They were wondering because you're coming from the Northeast. So you were like, hey, no, we're going to recruit Ashley. Like we're going to get players here in our backyard. And you've done that. You've done an incredible job there. How have you been able to develop that relationship in that region where you've been able to get some of the best talent locally?
The biggest thing is I want Mizzou to be their dream school, and I want them to realize that it's a reality. That if they have the ability to play in the SEC, I want them to stay home and play in front of their home crowd, which increases our fan base. I mean, when our fans have seen these players all through high school, they know them a little bit deeper. They feel like they're a part of them, and that's really the culture and the atmosphere I want to create, where they feel like it is their home, that they can rely on each other and continue to grow and develop. Um, and I just love the fact that these players grow up wanting to be a Tiger. Like there's something different about that. And I didn't have that in the Northeast. Like you don't have that feature head school in the Northeast because there's just so many schools. And you don't have that Power Five atmosphere in the Northeast as well. But when you're in the Midwest and you're in the SEC and you're the only Power Five school in the entire state, it's your dream that if you have the ability, you want to be a Tiger. And that's really kind of the atmosphere that we're bringing in.
You look at some of the other new faces. Taylor Ebbs from Kentucky had 8 homers, 31 RBIs last season. What was it about her that drew to come here and fit in this offense?
Left-handed stick, left-handed power stick. That was really what we lost with Laird, Honnold, and Gallagher. So being able to make up some of that with Ebbs. Also, her experience in the SEC. I mean, there's a benefit to transfers when they have that experience. You can be able to talk to them at a different level because they've been there, they played in this conference. They can help mentor those younger players, and at the same time, she's still new and inexperienced within this program. So she's learning right alongside them, but she knows what you have to do in order to be successful in this conference.
Defensively, because that's obviously your pride and joy. You had a great Gold Glove shortstop in Jenna Lair, one of the best in the country. You don't replace her, but that creates an opportunities there. Where do you see your defense there, especially up the middle at shortstop and some of the other key positions?
Great question, because that's what we've spent our entire fall on. I mean, we recruited five middle infielders to hopefully find two that can play there. Tough shoes to fill, but we're gonna work like crazy. And we've moved some things around. Like what's gonna surprise you, Eric, is probably I've been working Cara Daly at shortstop.
Wow.
And yeah, so here you go, a 3 year starting third baseman to move her over to the middle infield, which gives us the experience and takes the pressure off of our freshmen. I can put Walker at third, and I got Abby Hay over at first. So I get three power kids in the infield, and then the expectations aren't so high, and the pressure's not so high in one of those freshmen to replace at shortstop. Ebbs is doing extremely well at second base, so you get some of that experience over there, and then our freshmen can get a little bit of dirt underneath their cleats, so to say, to build up and get some experience in game time. And if Updegrove figures it out and gets really competitive and consistent, and that's gonna be the key. It's just being consistent over there. And that's where Jenna was so unbelievable that every ball that went her way, she was gonna make all the plays. So finding that consistency in one of our freshmen will allow us to be able to move some of those corners around a little bit more.
Sounds like you got some versatility
We
options.
do. Yeah, we have a lot of depth and a lot of athleticism. You even add Julia Crenshaw in the mix where we have Stefania Abriscato and Crenshaw working behind the plate. Should Fania do an unbelievable job behind the plate, I can move Crenshaw in the middle infield. So having that versatility will allow me to have the nine best hitters in the lineup, and that's really going to be the key.
Do you have leaders established at this point, or is that still evolving?
I think Crenshaw's probably our most vocal leader. I mean, she's really taken on a leadership role and rallies the team. She's very outspoken. She communicates extremely well with me. Cara Daly the same way. It's really the two of them that collaborate on a lot of ideas and what the team needs. But then you have this sophomore class, and I talked a lot about them last year as freshmen. But they are really the personality with Natalie Touche and Stefania Abriscato, even Marissa McCann and Abby Hay. Like they're really the personality of the team, and everyone feeds off of what the energy that they bring every day.
You mentioned, obviously, we talked earlier about Lori graduating. You do return Sierra Harrison, who won 14 games last year. Marissa McCann is back. Taylor Pardell is back. Talk about your pitching time. You've always done a good job of, you'll lose maybe one or two arms, but you've got it spread out to where you always have somebody returning that could carry the next mantle or pass the baton to. How do you feel about this year's pitching staff?
I am really excited where our pitchers are. They are in unbelievable shape. They are so strong. They control their bodies extremely well. Our bullpens have been very impressive. We have a lot of depth. We have seven in the bullpen, but I'm going to rely heavily on Harrison and McCann. I think those are going to be our one and our two. They're driven. They have the experience. They have the understanding underneath what they need to do to take us to the next level. And you got McCann coming, or you have a Pinnell coming out of the bullpen. I mean, to have the best closer in our game in our bullpen just adds a lot of trust to everybody we have. But you know what? I'm impressed with Natalie Touche and the work that she's put in. She did not get a lot of playing time last year, and she's dynamically different than everybody else we have. She's a hard drop all down, and we need that. I mean, all of our pitchers pretty much throw up in the zone, and we need to create a little bit more ground balls and maybe some swings and misses and change that bat plane. So I'm excited to see the development that Touche has. And then you also add Courtney Donahue. She's a junior college transfer pitcher that has really come along this fall. So I think she's going to eat up some innings for us, and it's not going to put as much strain on McCann and Harrison.
Taylor had 15 saves. Was there any temptation to perhaps consider her as a starter, considering she's got a lot of experience and maybe developing somebody else? Or do you like the depth that you have pitching wise that the youngsters that you're better served having her in that closer role, reliever role with that experience?
Going into the fall, so before we even played a game in the fall, I would have loved to have Pinnell as a starter. Like I think it adds a really good dynamic, and I would love to be able to bring Touche out of the bullpen with that hard drop. Pinella has the mentality for a closer. Like that's a hard switch. And even in some of her outings where she threw multiple innings, and I'm thinking of South Carolina, she threw five, and that was her career high in innings pitched. We were going into extra innings. She went to the bullpen in between every single inning to have that same mentality. So she finished an inning, immediately went down to the bullpen, had her closer mentality, stayed down there, came into the field from the bullpen, so didn't go back to the dugout. So very different mentality being a starter than a closer. So we got to just spend a lot more time if that's going to be the case with her on having the starter mentality.
That's really interesting. But it seems like she's embraced it. She likes it. I mean, it's
She likes the pressure. Like if I just in a bullpen if a session, if I just say, runner on second base, 2 outs, you got to get out of this. Like she loves that moment. She wants to have the game on the line every single time. So if she's a starter, I got to create that in her head almost that the game's on the line every single batter you face and the bases are loaded and you got to get out of it.
wow. That's pretty luxury to have there. You've added in the staff Bella Norton to the coaching staff. Talk about your whole staff as a whole, because it's a deep staff. But adding Bella to your staff and what she brings.
Bella has been absolutely tremendous. One of the best hires that we've had here. I think our catchers have been kind of neglected. They haven't gotten the attention that they really have needed because we've kind of been trying to piece it together. I've coached the catchers 1 year. Jeff Cottrell coached the catchers 1 year, and it hasn't been consistent and really tough to be the pitching coach and also work with the catchers at the same time. So Bella brings an unbelievable amount of expertise for the catchers, and they're getting a lot of individual attention, which I've seen a lot of growth from them. But I think the big piece is she's assisting Cottrell with hitting and having 19 hitters on staff, really tough to do with one person. So having Bella and Jeff work closely together every single day with the hitters has added a different dynamic, a different voice. They can bounce ideas off of one another. She has a very science-minded background, being able to come in with some motor preferences. So adding a different layer of what we were already doing. And then just the relatability to the players. I mean, she's younger in age, not saying that Jeff's old, but she's, being able to balance some things off between the two of them has really added a different layer and a different dynamic.
That is incredible, and you've got a great support staff as well with
Yeah,
players there helping out. I mean, tell me about building that entire support staff that people may not be aware that are maybe behind the scenes.
and every single year I sit back and I evaluate where we were in the season. What do we need? What's holding us back? What's the next level that we need to get to? And it's been player development and the video analytics and wanting to get players that and coaches that want to be a part of what we're doing. Mary Half was a grad assistant. Everyone knows she was an All-American in Arkansas. Was unbelievable as a grad assistant last year, and when we had an opening in our director of player development, Mary called me within 2 seconds of the position being available and said, I want the job. And has been awesome in being able to break down film and have conversations with players on where their mechanics are and what they needed to develop as an individual. And she wants to be in that role. And I think that just really speaks volumes to the program and how we're developing players from past players in their career and being able to maximize what they're able to bring to the program. And then I can add my two grad assistants. We have JC Roberti, who was a former player at Ohio State. She's someone that I recruited at Hofstra. Never got to coach her because I came here, but played 3 years at Hofstra and then transferred to Ohio State and played another two at Ohio State. And she's on our grad assistant staff. And then Kiki Toll, who was a catcher at Michigan. She has joined us this year also. So getting just a wealth of knowledge and being able to learn from as many people as we can and pass it on to our players.
looking at your schedule as we record this is not officially out, but we already know where you're playing the first 3 weeks. You're opening the season in Clearwater at the NFCA Leadoff Classic, which you've played there many a times. You're going to stay in Clearwater, I would assume, to play in the next weekend in the ESPN tournament, which you're in. Then you're going to Mary Nutter out in Palm Springs the third weekend. Those are arguably the three marquee tournaments in college softball in the pre-conference schedule every year, and you're in all three of them. The only school that can say that. All school. There's like 6 other schools that are in 2 of those 3 tournaments, but you're in all 3. Are you okay, Coach? Who's the scheduler maker there, Coach?
You got to be in it to win it, right? It's the best teams playing in the best tournaments. We got to go out and we got 10 new players and we got to expose them to the top level competition. We want to play in the best tournaments around the country to be able to prepare us for the SEC. And we know the SEC is obviously tough and it's going to kick our butt, but we got to go out and we got to play some highly competitive teams early on to be able to expose what we need to work on. And also, we got to have the strength of schedule to be able to give ourselves an opportunity to host. And that's really the bottom line is how can we put ourselves in a position to be able to host, to be able to play back in front of our home crowd and give ourselves a chance to be able to go into a postseason run.
Plus, I would imagine it's a compliment to the program and the success you've had because, especially those tournaments, you're an invite, and they want you. Everybody wants you, and that's a big plus. That the showcase, the marquee tournaments want Missouri in their field.
For sure. And you can't say no. Like when you're invited to some of those tournaments, you can't say no because that opportunity may never be there again. So definitely I am saying yes every single time. And I will say, like in the leadoff classic, our Sunday night game, guess who it's against? Duke. So here we go.
Wow.
Gotta have that
Somebody came up with a little TV, likes the TV storylines there or something.
Right, exactly.
On the field
So
storylines.
a little payback coming back.
My goodness, that's just remarkable. But again, that's going to be tremendous. The marquee tournaments there to get you ready, like you said, for SEC schedule strength. My goodness, obviously games got to be played, but there's a good chance you're going to have one of the toughest schedules in the country when it's all said and done. With including the SEC, where you have both Oklahoma, Texas, not only coming into the SEC, but you're hosting both of them. Part of an incredible home slate. I hope people have gotten their season tickets because that's going to be a hard ticket to get.
I know, and we've pretty much sold out season tickets, and we got berm seats that are still available. And I do think we have the hardest home SEC schedule out of the whole conference. It's going to be great. I mean, this is what playing this game's all about, and being able to build our stadiums and pack our stadiums and showcase our talent. I'm real excited. I'm excited for Oklahoma and Texas to be in our conference. I think it grows our conference, it grows our sport, and to have. I mean, you're going back Big 12, you're going Big 8. So you're having some rivalries that go way back, and now we're playing again in a different conference. And I think it's just going to be exciting for a whole fan base to have OU and Texas come back home.
What will be the impact for the league from a standpoint like conference tournaments? As I understand, all 15 will still make the SEC tournament. I know there's been conversations whether it'll stay on site, could it go neutral site, because there's so many institutions to host. Not every campus could do that. So what are some of the impacts of Oklahoma, Texas coming in beyond the obvious on the field competition? But there's other ramifications from a league standpoint.
I think the crowds, like
Yeah.
our venues, our campus venues are not going to be big enough anymore to hold our SEC tournament. And that's the conversation about a neutral site. Can we get a bigger venue to make it almost like a mini World Series, where it's like the pre World Series tournament is the SEC tournament before we go into the NCAA's. So being able to have some crowds where if you can't get a ticket to Oklahoma City for the College World Series, you want to get a ticket for the SEC tournament.
That would be something. It'll be in Athens this year, and then we'll see what happens there. I know baseball, they have their own little neutral thing in Hoover, which has been pretty successful on the baseball side. Is that something that certainly might be kind of where that idea is coming from as well?
There's some venues out there that are talking about wanting to host us. It's again making sure that it's a safe environment and a safe playing field. Like we don't want to play a softball game on a major league ball field with a backstop that's 50 feet away from home plate. Like that doesn't help our game at all. So it's making sure it's a venue that's conducive to our sport, that's appropriate, but it also gives our student athletes a great experience. And there's some places around there that are looking to be able to create that atmosphere and that environment. We're going to have some SEC teams that are going to test some things out to see if it's something that we want to pursue, but it's always in the conversation to give our student athletes the best experience.
Clearly, the SEC schedule will not impact their non-conference schedule. You're still scheduling as tough as ever. I am curious, is there any conversations about, is the SEC slate going to stay at the number it is now? Has there been talk about adding another series, considering there's more teams in the league? Where is that conversation at?
We don't want to add more games because when you start to add more games, then you're reducing your non-conference. And if you add more conference games, someone's winning, someone's losing. So you're 500 because someone in your conference has to lose when you play each other, and now that reduces your conference RPI. So we want to keep it where it is right now. We know exactly how many non-conference games we should be playing. And this was something that came out of it, COVID, when a lot of those conferences started adding conference games, what it did to their conference RPI. So we want to keep it where it is. We're on a real good rotation where it's going to be a 4-year rotation that you're going to play everybody within the conference and a 7-year rotation that you're going to play everyone home and away.
Well, that'll be fun and exciting schedule to come about. It's something for to look forward to. One thing that I know it's not been exciting is watching your beloved Giants this year.
Mm.
There's not a big demand for tickets there. Have you given away? I mean, because you still had season tickets, right? Or did you give those away?
My brother has all 4 PSLs now. I still have one in my name,
Sure.
but he is controlling the rights to all 4 PSLs. He had put them on the NFL ticket exchange every single weekend. It's been a tough season. It's been a tough couple of years. Maybe it's been a tough decade for us Giants fans. But I mean, we still bleed blue. We will always be there. We're still rooting for them.
Listen, I'm a Dolphin fan, so I'm feeling your pain. To win, so I'm not even like piling on because we're in the same miserable state that we are. So let me ask you this: if the mayor has put you as charge of the Giants GM, all right, let's say you're the GM because
Yeah.
you're a better evaluator at this point than most of the people at the Giants. I mean, that's just my view. What would you do? How do you fix it? Do you move away from Daniel Jones? Do you go get a new quarterback? Or what's your thoughts on Dable? What do you do?
The first thing I do is I get in the conference room with all the scouts and all the people that are evaluating the drafts. Like, let's talk about your evaluation first, because if we're not evaluating the right way, then we're not having the right people go up on that board. So we got to talk to those people first to figure out what their evaluation is. How are they evaluating? We definitely have enough money. So we got to make sure that we're drafting the right people, we're evaluating correctly, and yeah, we need to make sure that we got somebody who can throw and pass, and we got to have blockers to be able to protect. So I would have a lot of conversations going on from a management standpoint and then also a draft standpoint.
Did you watch the Hard Knocks Giants edition?
I did. It was interesting.
What'd you think? Yeah.
Yeah, it was very interesting on some of those conversations and trying to figure out with Barkley. And you know what made me think a lot about just market value in general, and it made me think a lot about NIL and the state of college athletics and how do you know what market value is. And so I learned a lot in them releasing Barkley to be able to figure out what his market value is to see what they have to afford and what they have to put up front.
That's interesting. I never heard of that. It's a good comparison to think about what that's ahead with the NIL and what could be headed in college athletics moving forward. I mean, you're right. The models are there on the pros. Is it weird seeing Barkley in that Eagle colors?
I mean, I wouldn't say weird. It's kind of a little hateful because I've already hated the Eagles, and now you just add a little bit more. I mean, Philly and me do not get along whatsoever. It doesn't matter what sport. I am not a Philly fan one
Wow.
bit.
Well,
No, I hate the Eagles. I hate the Eagles.
so yeah.
Sorry.
In other words, yeah, you're not rooting for him. Got it.
No, not at all. And when I was at Hofstra, we had a lot of people from Pennsylvania, and
I
they
was gonna
just stuck
say.
all the time.
Oh
Yep,
wow.
Phillies, Eagles, you name it.
Speaking of which, I meant to. You went back home last year during the season from a scheduling
Yeah.
standpoint. Got to play some games. What was that like to be back for that week?
Eric, I got to tell you, it was the best thing I've ever done as a coach. Not because I was able to go play back home, but to take the Missouri team to the East Coast, to stay in New York City, to go downtown, to be in Times Square, to show them the Statue of Liberty and the Empire State Building and 9/11 Memorial, to go down to Fairfax, Virginia, and show them the Capitol and the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier in Arlington, and then we ran up the Rocky Steps in Philadelphia. I mean, some things that these kids will never get to do in their entire lifetime, and to do it while playing softball was such an unbelievable moment and experience for all of us.
Wow, that's tremendous, right? Because there's an educational side of this. People forget
Yeah.
that when you take your players on the road, sometimes there is educational side of it. Not just obviously there's a on the field we want to win games and things, but there are things you could learn in the road trips.
Right. Yeah, and for sure. And I think just the added layer was allowing Jenna Laird and Maddie Gallagher and Stefania Abriscato to play in front of their hometown. Like that was really special to have Hofstra have a sellout crowd, and that was part of why I wanted to do it. I wanted to be able to give back to Hofstra because Hofstra gave me so much for 17 years. And I understand the value to have an SEC school go and play back on campus. Like that happened when I was at Hofstra, LSU came and played us. Like that's a big deal because there's not many sports at Hofstra that an SEC team is going to go and play them. So to have softball and an SEC team play them on campus was unbelievable for the fan base and for the sport on Long Island, and to have a sellout crowd, but then to have those three play in front of their high school coaches and their travel ball teammates and those types of things, just it's memories that they're going to remember forever. I can tell you that Julia Crenshaw said to me when we went to go play at Hofstra, she said, I would be willing to sit the bench to have Stefania play so she can play in front of her family
Wow.
because I get to play in front of my family every single day. And that kind of just shows the character and the quality and the respect that they had for one another, um, to be able to share that moment with each other.
Was it emotional? What was it like when you're on that field for the first time? I don't know the last time you've been on that field since you left. What was it like being in the opposite dugout, seeing a lot of, I'm sure, familiar faces in the stands there?
A lot of memories. And I think the best memories, because in that dugout, because it's on the third base side, is the visitor dugout, but that's the home dugout when you're hosting a conference championship. So a lot of really cool memories being in that dugout, winning championships, and then looking at all their banners across the outfield wall and all the championships that I was a part of, and thinking about all the players that I was able to coach within that program and alumni coming back. I mean, really, really full circle moment for me to be able to be back on that field in a different uniform.
You've had a lot of great teams, a lot of teams you enjoy coaching. Was last year like at the top of the list for the various reasons we've talked about here? There, because I mean that's
Yeah,
incredible chemistry to have a player say, "I'm willing to sit on the bench so that my teammate can play in front of her family." I mean that's deep stuff there.
and it really is. And we have an unbelievable highlight video that we've shown to families and recruits that really emulate and showcase what last year's experience was like. And knowing that I've been doing this going on 27 years, I don't have a lot of memories that really can duplicate what I experienced last year. I mean, I've had very successful teams, but to have the culture that we did and to be able to build it the way we have in a short period of time and coming off of a year that we probably underachieved, it was kind of like everything fell into place for the right reasons with the right people. And that I've never had. And I've had a lot of successful teams and a lot of successful programs, but to have that feeling all the way through, that when we lost our last game against Duke and we're in the locker room and everybody's crying, and you can go from top all the way down to our student managers, like everybody is crying and no one wanted to leave the locker room. And you just wanted to have one more moment with each other, then you know you have really something special.
No doubt. Well said. That's it's a special thing. You wish everybody coaches players. They wish they could bottle it up, but you can't. But that comes with another year and another group. And so this will be my last question about their team is this year when you get closer to February, get to Clearwater. What are some maybe questions, maybe thoughts in the back of your mind that you're looking to finding out about this team that you think could be a key to the rest of the year?
The key really is going to be our middle infield, and some leadership in the infield, but it's going to come down to our middle infielders. It really is. I know we're going to get dynamic pitching. Like I feel really confident about our pitching. It's making sure that our defense is consistent behind us. We've always prided ourselves on defense, and we can't have the ball go and play and not trust that the play is going to be made. So we've been spending a lot of time on defense, but I think our excitement is going to come from our offense. Like I'm really excited when what I've seen and the changes we've made, and we've never been an offensively driven team, but we're spending a lot more time. And I think the addition of Bella has added a little bit different energy and level excitement to our offense.
That's really exciting. That'll be exciting to see. Exciting offense like Malik Neighbors has brought as a receiving core comparison there.
Wouldn't that be nice?
Wow, he's pretty
Wouldn't
good.
that be great? Yeah,
I
for
will.
sure.
I will say I like the Tracy back too. In fairness, hey, we're gonna end on a Giants positive. We're gonna end on a positive. It's a couple
We're
of
gonna
good.
end on a positive
Yeah, with
with,
Tracy and Malik Neighbors, that's good building blocks.
okay, we'll start there. Yes.
All right, that's Larissa Anderson, sorry, head coach, tough Giant fan. You can expect nothing else. Coach, always a pleasure to talk to you. As always, we do this every year. I'm sure we'll probably run into each other during your Florida swing there to start the year in that incredible schedule that will start off with the NFCA Leadoff Classic and then move to the following weekend to the Clearwater. But thanks for always taking the time to talk to us on the show, and I'm sure we'll talk during the season, Coach.
Awesome. Thanks, Eric. Appreciate it.